Hi, welcome to the Addiction Recovery Place, the podcast champion addiction treatments specialists around the world. I'm very pleased to introduce today's guest, Patrick Jones. Patrick is a transformation coach specializing in addiction recovery, who is also the founder of Freedom for Life. He developed the 7 summits of freedom on his own 7-year healing journey from addiction. Patrick helps many people who hide their pain from addiction and live a double life who want to stop. Patrick resides in Stamford, Connecticut with his 4 children. Welcome to the Addiction Recovery Place podcast, Pat. It's great to have you with us here today.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on again. Look forward to chatting with you and your audience.
Excellent. No, thank you very much indeed. So let's just dive into a really nice, easy question to start with. Tell us how and why you started Freedom for Life and your own journey to reach this point where you're at today.
Yeah. Good question. Good place to start. So,
Yep.
my journey, the freedom, 7 summits of freedom is something I wish that I had. My journey was a 15-year battle with addiction.
Mm.
I mean, it was in secrecy. I was hiding. I was lying, doing all the things to not actually move past it. So there was a part of me that desperately wanted to heal, desperately wanted to break free, and I kept it a secret. I didn't tell many people, I think one person for 10 years, 2015. And my battle was physically with food addiction, nicotine addiction, and smoking. Main one was food, though. It was a multiple times a day, 3 to 5 times a day, where I was obsessing about food from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. And I found a way to cope, release all that guilt and shame that pops up. And I used bulimia as a strategy to do that. And so I became bulimic. I was labeled addict. I went to recovery centers that was thrown in them, mental hospitals. And I wanted to find a way to break free, but I never could. I never could gain control over it. And ultimately, 2015 hit, and I was diagnosed with an eye disease called keratoconus. And this eye disease got me back on the couch, depressed. I had 4 kids. 2 were just born a year before. There was a moment, my twins, who were only, I think, 1 at the time, they tapped on my shoulder and they said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, wake up." And I couldn't wake up. I couldn't see. I was legally blind. I couldn't work. I was on disability. And in that moment, I was thinking, like, holy crap, like, I can't believe I'm here again. I can't believe I'm on the couch again. But there was a part of me that was like, maybe this is an opportunity I can actually break free from this and heal in some capacity. And I wasn't using the word healing, but I was like, how can I get out of this? So more of me wanted to actually move past it than stay where I was in the 15-year battle. And so I went to my final recovery center in 2016, January, and they gave me these things called relapse prevention plan, this plan. And they said, you need to go here for 8 weeks afterwards. You need to be monitored. You need to be this and that. And I checked in with labels, all these things that the treatment centers do. And again, there's a place for them. But I was sick and tired of going. I was sick and tired of them saying, you have to do this the rest of your life. And I sat there and I made a decision. I made a decision in the moment, Chris. I said, I am no longer coming back here ever again. I will find a way to heal, to move past this, to break free from this destruction, because my life matters, and I can't live this way anymore. My kids need their dad.
Yes.
So I went on a 7-year journey. I could say 7 years. It's a never-ending journey, but 7 years of uncovering the real me, breaking free from the shackles of addiction, but more importantly, rebuilding myself, rebuilding my identity, building and mastering my mindset. And as a professional, breathwork therapist, I'm a trauma-informed therapist, as a somatic shadow work facilitator, and all these certifications and mental mindset coach and NLP, all those things kind of came along the way as I started to heal and break through and break free and unlock these different levels of freedom that I didn't even know was there. I started working with individuals, and I always have for 20 years in coaching. But I started working with individuals to basically go through different parts of these I call them the 7 summits for our freedom. So these summits. So I would work with a group of people that were struggling with binge eating or food addiction or any type of addiction. And I would actually test, could this work for them? And it did. Something that took me years to break free of, they broke free in 7 days. And then I added more tools. And then as I started going on my own personal journey over the last 6 years, I unlocked more levels and I'm like, oh, wait a second. There's this other level that I didn't know existed that I now have another sense of freedom in my own recovery journey. And so then I added that to the program, and it started becoming this whole journey now called the 7 Summits of Freedom. That's kind of
Good.
the long-winded
Wow.
answer for you on that, kind of how that got
That's
created.
well, we're going to get a little bit deeper into that, but
Yeah,
that's an
yeah.
incredible journey you've been on. So it's something that you've created yourself through your own addiction that wasn't any part of any other therapeutic model.
Not at all whatsoever. Yeah. Probably a combination of 15 different models of
Yep.
things that actually worked out of probably 100 things that I tried over the years.
Wow. Well, congratulations, first of all. I mean, that's
Thank
incredible, and
you.
what you've achieved since is quite remarkable. And this is why I'm very excited to speak to you today, Patrick. So,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
what best describes the model, the 7 Summits of Freedom? So, what best describes that? And how did you decide to use it to help so many people with their own addictions? I mean, we've touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah. Yeah. So, what best describes the model is the Freedom for Life model is a transformative healing journey. It integrates what I call somatic reintegration, what I call shadow work, and also cognitive reformation. So, there's no 12 steps, there's no labels. Basically, what it does is it empowers individuals to achieve lasting change by really addressing the deep rooted causes of addiction and then unlocking, like I said, different levels of freedom to bring back new senses of power. Really, the model is a full spectrum of the pivotal stages of my recovery, but also those that want to recover and move past the stage of recovery and achieve total attainment in all areas and all domains of life and rebuild their life. That's what the summary I would say would be for that.
it sounds perfect. I mean, I've worked in addiction treatment for many years, and this is a very new model. So it's very exciting for me to be hearing about this today. And obviously, I've looked up a lot about you. So, what are your views on harm reduction? Because that seems to be a very staple treatment model. And how do you think that this plays a part in addiction treatment?
Yeah, harm reduction, I think, is a really important piece. I think it's a very practical and a compassionate approach. I mean,
Yes,
it
absolutely.
really aims to minimize the negative consequences of addictive patterns and behaviors, things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, why I think it's crucial is because it meets the individuals on where they're at in their journey. And I think if you try to force somebody with, do this, you have to, families forcing their, loved ones into treatment, into things like that, it actually makes it worse. Like they get resistant toward it. So this offers more of incremental steps toward healthier choices. And that allows them to make the choice themselves and know that it's available to them rather than being forced down their throat.
Mhm. I couldn't have answered that better myself. I mean, that's my own view. I'm a big champion of harm reduction, and it's kind of very
Yes.
muddied sometimes. But the answer you've just given is, I mean, that's perfect. So thank you for that. You describe freedom for life. I want to read this: a transformative healing journey not found in any traditional recovery model. No 12 steps, no treatment or therapy. Sounds pretty progressive. So, can you go into some detail about this model and how it enables people to address their addictions instead of the tried and tested models such as the 12 step, which is the classic go to?
Yeah, let's go through that. So
Yep.
this model particularly, like I said, there's
Mhm.
7 summits. What took me 7 years, essentially 22 years of struggling, one can achieve and unlock different levels of freedom in simply 6 months. First step to that is taking back your power. The men and the women that I work with, when they come into my program, they have a sense of powerlessness. And I think a lot of that is conditioned from, 12 steps or other programs or conditioning that they have is they don't have power over their addiction. They don't have power to take control.
Mhm.
And part of that is actually confronting truth and confronting their current reality. And so the things that fuel these addictive patterns is hiding, lying, secrecy. So it's about getting into an environment that someone might feel safe, and what I call a tribal community. I call it tribal transformation. When you're in a community of people with the same desire, healing and transformation happens faster. And so part of that journey, the 7 summits, is first becoming awakened to your current reality and confronting your belief system, confronting and investigating what's actually happening here, and also looking at reclaiming power by actually getting back into integrity, right? Because when you're out of integrity, and from my experience, the people I work with, it is the number one thing that fuels addiction. So how do we start creating habits of personal power immediately so that you can start to gain power in yourself and the way you operate? And so that's kind of that first summit. And then once we gain some power, we take back control. We're not trying to stop the addiction. Instead, we're repatterning the mind and dismantling it, right? By rewiring the neural pathways. And then the second phase, it's about detoxing. Now, it's not like going to a treatment center and detoxing. This is a mental, physical, and emotional detox. And what I mean by that is when you can create space between your current reality and what you want and just be in that space and hold that space and be in it and not have to do anything, there's a purging that happens, a release that happens emotionally by actually allowing yourself to feel these emotions. I call it emotional fluidity, where you allow yourself to feel everything that you didn't feel for 25 years and just being. Nothing to do, just being. And there's a nutritional component as well. I believe very strongly that, all these heavy metals, all these things in our bodies, they accumulate, and the environment, toxins, things like that. So when we can detox mentally, emotionally, provide space, allow all those emotions to rust through, feel them, accept them, then you're detoxifying and purging out the old self, which is actually the real you, but feeling them. And then all of a sudden it opens up space for new. And so that's where we go into the next summit, which is about healing your past to move forward. When you can do some somatic repattering, because the challenge, one of the things that fuels addictive patterns, from my experience and also working with individuals, is unprocessed energy. When you could actually bring out the energy that's been stored for 20 years from, let's say you didn't allow yourself to cry because it wasn't okay to cry 20 years ago, or you were in a fight with your girlfriend 2 years ago and you didn't have a chance to express anger and you stuffed it in, it all gets stored in the body. So through things like breath work, somatic work, embodiment practices, rituals that are done daily and also weekly, you're able to discharge all those unprocessed emotions, right? And all of a sudden clarity, focus, peace, and I get this every week, is freedom. One session freedom, ultimate freedom. It's like, I didn't know this was possible because you're purging out and clearing out and bringing out space for more. There's a lot more in the healing stage, but that's kind of a lot of that process. The next phase is building your identity, right? One of the challenges that I had 2017 through 19 was I was asking the question, Chris, who am I? Who am I? Like, I had stopped the binging and the purging. I had a smoking addiction in 16 to 17 I picked up, started rewiring my mind a little bit and really investigating my thoughts. But as soon as that opened up, I took this training called Soul Purpose Blueprint, where I had to ask the question over 3 days at a training, who am I? Like, what's my purpose? It was the scariest question ever. But who am I? Meaning, like, what are my core values? What are my gifts? Right? Who am I? What qualities in me can I actually be and make it, and that it's okay to be me? So I had to uncover who am I. And part of this process of rebuilding self is actually rebuilding your identity and who you really are at the deepest core that you were born as. Passions, your gifts, and unlocking all those things. And then from there, it unlocks connection. One of the most important pieces for me is radically accepting myself and loving myself. Because when I didn't love myself and accept myself, any saboteur behavior happened. It didn't matter what it was. Eating a jar of peanut butter, or whether it was overworking, whether it was porn addiction that showed up on occasion, right? It didn't matter if I didn't accept me, if I didn't love me. So there's practices of self-compassion, things like that we do. Nobody liked me. My kids hated me. My kids threw rocks at my car, right? They didn't want to come with their dad on their weekends, even post-divorce about 5 years ago, until I started to rebuild each domain of my life and create specific targets of what my ideal life would look like, and actually achieve them through a very specific process. And so this is what I do with men and women. Once they reach these 4 summits or 5 summits, then it's about time to rebuild their life, right? They're not ready to rebuild that until they rebuild themselves and heal and move past. And then once they rebuild their life, very quickly, what could take 3 years, you could do in 90 days and be in abundance in all areas of life. Then an interesting stage that I discovered about 2 years ago was this legacy stage, the summit.
Yes.
Living purpose, living vision-driven and purpose-driven. And this is where I'm at right now, is at the highest level, what would fulfill you? And I asked myself this question even last year. If money wasn't an option, what would fulfill me? Right? Well, it's having a healing center in Connecticut where I live, where someone goes to transform from addiction into never needing to go to any treatment center or rehab ever again. Right? I'm like, oh, okay. So that's the path I'm on over the next 3 to 5 years. But we get a man or a woman into that phase. And what opens up at that point is giving back. It's service, it's mentoring, it's working with others, and in their communities, and taking these gifts and these lessons they learned and actually putting them into their work as a leader, putting them into their kids, and putting all these lessons into their community for impact. It's all about impact.
I'm trying to I think the word you said, the most important word,
Living purpose.
that was wonderful what you just said, but acceptance is the key. I think with any, I think you've got to have that point first before you move on. You've got to, that's such a crucial thing that you just said there. So thank you.
So
Thank you very
true.
much for explaining that. That's an incredible program that you devised here. And I applaud you greatly for this. So what have you found to be some of the challenges, Patrick, of working with people suffering with addiction, and how have you overcome some of these hurdles yourself
Love it.
in helping those?
Love the question. So over the years, working with different individuals on addiction, what I realize is the biggest challenge is being ready and making the decision yourself. What I mean by that is, for 12 years, like I said, I was thrown in all these different hospitals and different treatment centers, not because I wanted to, because they told me you need to go. They told me I'm blah, 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 blah label. So many memories of that. And that's the same with people that I've worked with, meaning I've had people referred to me. They said, hey, my husband, John, is struggling. He needs your help. And so I took them on them. And I learned that someone has to be ready themselves. They have to make the decision themselves, because the challenge I faced was that they weren't willing to do the work necessary to get any result. Not in a place of coming from the internal desire to change, to heal, to move past it. And since then, people that I work with, they experience even a little bit of freedom, it's a game over, because they know it's possible. They already know what's possible intellectually, but when someone can internally embody and feel freedom for the first time in 20 years, there's no more challenges. They're enrolled completely and they move forward. It's more of like I said, the people that ready, right? And I know very quickly. I can feel it. I can sense it. I know it because I was that guy. Like, I will find a way, and I see it, right? And those are the people that forward and they get
Mhm.
significant results in.
But do you tell people up front you're not ready?
They
That's
tell
tough one.
themselves they end up uncovering that themselves.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Okay.
even a form that I have filled out, there's questions in there, and I have them intentionally to understand really where they're at in their
Mm.
readiness,
Mhm.
right? And I I wouldn't tell someone that you're not ready.
Mhm.
At the end of the meeting that we talk about, they're gonna tell me. They're gonna tell me because I'm gonna ask them questions. Where are you
Mhm.
at? What's going on for you? I come from a very empathetic approach because I've
Mhm.
been in those shoes.
Yep.
They know if this is the thing for them or not. And because it's a very personalized mentorship and coaching and training that I do,
Mhm.
be like that right match. I don't have some big treatment center. It's really personalized coaching and personalized mentorship.
Mhm.
So it's got to be that right jive together, if that makes sense.
Of course. I mean, obviously dealing with that very sensitively, but just approaching that maybe you need to address a few other things or get to that first point of acceptance is quite a,
Yeah.
I'd say.
I will add, Chris, I will add this
Yes,
thing. This is important.
please.
There's individuals that really do need treatment.
Mm.
They're not stable, right?
Mhm.
I needed it. I will
Mm.
admit I needed to go into several recovery centers because I wasn't on medications I probably should have been on just to stabilize me. I didn't have a treatment team. There is a need for treatment centers. It's not the
Oh, of
final
course.
destination, but there are some people that
Mm.
I will say to them, hey, here's what I want you to do first. And this is why I want you to do it.
Mhm.
And so I'm not saying you're not ready because I think that could like shame or,
Oh, of
it could
course.
spiral them in a different direction. It's more of this is what I
Mm.
want you to do first, right?
Mhm.
And then come back to me.
That's no, that's very fair. So so what is the process for people to attend or join your program, Patrick? So kind of someone finds you online or they just hear all about the wonderful work you do. What's the process for somebody to get from finding you to, coming onto the program?
Yeah, great question. So everything is on the website domain, healyouraddiction.com.
Mhm.
Once they go there, there's a really cool video up there they can watch, just sharing kind of the whole program details. And then they just click on the button there, and they can fill out something, and they get on the phone with me or on a Zoom call. From there, then they come enrolled to the program, and it is an online program. There is an
Mhm.
immersion in person component as well, but it's primarily online.
Mhm. Okay. So without going into any names, Patrick, obviously, but can you tell us some success stories? Obviously, you have many success stories, but tell us some of the stories that have made your program so successful.
Yeah, good question. So there are several addictions that I work with, and I think that was one of the things we're going to talk about.
Yep.
That are most dear to my heart are the addictions that were my main use addictions, which was food
Mhm.
addiction.
Mhm.
And it's so incredible to be able to work with people in food addiction, any addiction, but food addiction, because what they're taught and trained is that I can't have this food. I can't have sugar the rest of my life. I can't have a carb the rest of my life. And so when they dismantle that mindset and investigate that thought, is it true that you can't have this the rest of your life? And there's a lot of like process that I do and some of the frameworks I have.
Mm.
But the moment, every time this happens, right? Every time this happens, the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know it was okay to have this food, right? It's like a mindset shatter. But this is no different than with nicotine, right?
Mm.
So like nicotine, it's not healthy, right? We know
Mm.
that. There's
Yep.
labels on there that say on how unhealthy it is.
Mm.
But the actual substance itself, there's nothing wrong with having nicotine.
Mhm.
What fuels the addiction behavior is not the nicotine itself. It's the self-judgment that this is bad, that this behavior is bad, which is internally saying, I am bad for doing this.
Yep.
So when
Mhm.
somebody in nicotine or any type of behavior, gambling is okay. Gambling is normal. I was on last week somewhere. There are people gambling everywhere. It's normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every time, and usually this happens in the first 2 weeks of my program, I'm working with somebody and they get these mindset perspectives that they've never seen before. They just rise up very quickly, very quickly. So these are the types of things that I love to see, me joy, that the same perspective shift I had to go through like 6, 7 years ago, I unlocked, they unlocked it too, right? Because it's really deep seated, rooted from these conditioned beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all those are the most joyful things for me. I've seen people 7 years, different recovery centers, 8 different recovery centers. They'll come to me in a week or two, and immediately they feel that sense of freedom, immediately, right? In one session, I do what's called breath work sessions. And in one session, they release all this discharge that at a treatment center, they didn't get to release because there wasn't emotional release work, right? When they can release that, they're like, where did you come from? Why wasn't this available? Why isn't this in the treatment center?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not in any way saying anything negative about treatment centers. They have their place.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have people that refer me to integrate these 7 summits post-treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying, it's not for everybody, and it's not the long-term solution to get results and in different areas of life and to move forward and move past it.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. So we're going to touch on this a little bit. So what kind of addictions does your program help? Because there's such a wide range, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
nicotine, alcohol, gambling. What kinds of
Yeah.
addictions does your program help specifically?
Food addiction, gambling addiction, porn
Mhm.
addiction,
Mhm.
alcohol addiction or alcoholism, however you want to call
Yes.
it. Those are the primary ones. I primarily work with men. The big one for men is obviously alcohol. Tried 12 steps or rehabs. They've been thrown in and out, and they're looking for a alternative. Or some gambling on occasion I work with, but primarily food, alcohol, and porn. Big ones that people are looking for an alternative for, particularly. But those are the main 4, particularly.
Would you say that porn addiction has grown rapidly, should we say, over since the internet? I mean, that must have really ramped things up incredibly. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
yeah.
Listen, it is way too accessible, which is the problem. So like my kids are 9, my boys are 14 and 15. And my twins just got an iPad, right? And, there's internet attached to it. And obviously we have to screen and make sure that they don't go to specific websites. So it's protected, but, is it really protected from them? No. So I think it's important to talk about these things with your kids. That's an important conversation to have. But at the same time, it's way too accessible down the street, your friend John down the street, like on their phones. Hell, my kids could hop on my phone to sit. I think having that as an available choice is definitely rapidly created as a secret addiction and an unaware addiction, meaning men that porn addiction, they think it's normal to do their thing 3, 4, 5 times a day, right? They don't even know that it's this destructive, habit that isn't normal. And I think it's because definitely technology has risen and allowed that, and it's an instant relief, which is what people want. It's the fastest instant relief you could have, and it's accepted by society more, I think.
I mean, it's the same with gambling, I suppose, because giving an example, in the United Kingdom, they changed the laws around gambling. Gambling addiction skyrocketed. And moving
Really?
here to America, yeah, I mean, moving here to America, I see it now. I mean, we have it in now, and all these casinos popping up. And
Oh yeah,
I'd say, wow,
yeah.
this is
Well,
this is not healthy.
and here's the problem. You brought up a really good point. These things become big giant profit centers. Meaning they're taking advantage of these dopamine hits, right? Which is fine to a degree, though, where the marketing is so seductive, right? The they give out all these free things to go for gambling, right? For this, for that. So they're actually fueling that behavior to make it more accessible. So I think it's just going to continue to rise. I mean, yeah, it's not something that's talked about, the gambling addiction stuff as much, but I think it's something that a lot of this stuff is in secrecy, and it's important to talk about. I think it's really important.
It's kind of considered very different to say a drug addiction, where drug addiction is very, very shunned upon, where gambling addiction, people are just having a bit of fun and they
Right.
don't see the other side of it.
Right. So it's like someone that's gambling. Let's say I walked in a casino and there was 100 people right there. Let's say 10 of them are secretly, gambling in an addiction. Nobody would know.
Mhm.
Like you could literally look at everybody and you wouldn't know that that person's obsessing thoughts about gambling. They are numb, they are checked out, they're in a high and they can't get themselves off that high, right?
Mhm.
It's no different than with food, like food addiction particularly. The moment I took a bite of anything that I thought was a bad food, I was done. Nobody would know that I'd be walking around obsessing and thinking about food and where I can get my next cupcake or brownie or ice cream the whole day. It looked normal, right? I'm in a restaurant, but I couldn't eat a regular meal. I was secretly eating, more food afterwards, but nobody knew. It's so secret, gambling, food, alcohol at a bar. It doesn't matter because it's so available, and that's I think the biggest challenge.
Most definitely. Yeah, there are some big changes that are happening. I mean, it's escaped to when I started addiction work many, many years ago. So the world is
Oh yeah,
changing.
it's
So
very different.
exactly, exactly. Um, does your program promote peer support, and how do you ensure that your clients receive the best support to overcome their addiction once they've completed your program or they've moved through the the, the stages and they're kind of
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I call it a tribe. Like one of the things that human beings want, and I believe it's one of the basic human needs, is to be part of something, to be part and belong. They want to feel belonging and they desperately want connection. I know for me, I wanted a connection. I wanted to know that I'm accepted and loved for who I am, just like everybody else. Being human, that's a human condition.
Mhm.
So, really, one of the most important pieces of my program is community. But again, I call it a tribe because you can heal faster, like I said, when you're in a tribe. When you're with people that are moving toward a destination, you're both overcoming challenges together. And the most amazing part of the program is that when someone's at Summit 7 or 6 or 5 and someone's at Summit 1,
Mhm.
right? They actually are helping them at the same time
Mhm.
because they have unlocked these different levels. They're talking about where they were, where they were before, where they are now. They're seeing the difference. This
Mhm.
person's seeing the difference. So they are inspired internally from these results.
Mhm.
Things I added recently to my program was what I call freedom mentors. So at the end of the seventh summit, once you get into legacy, it's all about giving back, and that brings about another level of fulfillment.
Mhm.
And it's something that just happened organically, where the person will work with the individual that starts in phase one and summit one.
Mhm.
They'll actually be kind of their mentor through it. I'm not saying it's not like a 12 step where it's like they're available, they have to do certain things, they're not in charge, not telling them what to do, they're not have to
Yeah.
attend meetings. It's more
Mhm.
of, hey, I've been through the journey and I'm your guide if you need anything of support. I'm here for you,
Mhm.
right? And they just watch them through the journey and guide them where needed.
Mhm.
And the second piece to this is the tribal formation aspect of it. So a couple times a year, I'll have an event where they'll come together for tribal healing and tribal regulation,
Mhm.
where part of healing from some of these addictive patterns is actually repatterning the nervous system, right? When you can actually regulate it during, these months in the program. When you come together as a tribe, you can regulate the nervous system as a tribe. which brings about more healing, more elevation, more elevated emotions, more vitality, more clarity, another level of freedom, right?
Mhm.
So the tribe aspect of it has been a main priority for me last year in the program.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask about peer support, because I kind of recognize that just from looking. It doesn't really necessarily say anything about that on your website, but I kind of saw that that was a very important part of reinforcing the program as well, because you've got the different levels. And no, that explains everything to me perfectly. So we're just coming to the end now, Patrick. Where can people find you and your work online, and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Patrick at healyouraddiction.com is the email, healyouraddiction.com. They can
Mhm.
go there. They can email me. They can go to that website.
Yep.
On Instagram, Patrick
Yep.
Allen Jones. I post a lot of content on aspects of things and a lot of education as well. It's ALLAN.
Right.
And there's a Facebook business page as well, fan page. If you want to hop on there, I do a lot of content on there as well. So those are the different
Fabulous.
places that you can find me. I'd love to
Excellent.
talk to you.
No,
Anyone
thank.
that's out there, they would love to have a conversation.
I'm sure they'd love to speak to you too. Definitely, Patrick. Last question. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask, or is there anything you'd like our audience to know about, or any future plans that you might be having?
Good question. It's like I'm excited about the future. There's a lot of great things in the future coming, but I don't think there's anything you missed with questions, but you know, I think if I can share just a message if I can share something on that.
Of course, please do. Yeah.
There's people right now that are in the dark, and maybe whoever's listening to this or watching this, um, you feel like there's no way out, right? And you feel like you're trapped. You feel like you've tried things, that you feel hopeless. You feel like way out. Um, you feel alone. You feel helpless, um, and you don't know how to get out. And I want you to know, if you're watching this, listening to this, is that there is a way out. Not every path is the right path for you. And I had to discover this after failing so many times. But I'm so grateful that I failed or it didn't work, because I found something that worked. And then I found something else that worked. And then I found 6 things that didn't work, and I went backwards. And then I found another thing that worked. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was available. And so the message I just want to share with your audience is that whatever they're going through, whatever challenge is happening, wherever they're stuck and they don't feel like they can get out of that, remember this: you were not born this way. You were born whole, complete. You were born the playful little boy or girl that runs around free, right? That's who we are by nature.
Mhm.
And it's all about coming back home. And it's possible for you. Whoever's
Mhm.
listening, whoever's watching, whoever's struggling, there is a way out. It's 100% possible no matter how hard it is.
Wow. I couldn't have ended today's podcast any better than that, Patrick. So thank you so much for joining me. That was
Pleasure
amazing.
for having me. This was great. Thank you for allowing me to
No,
come on and share.
really appreciate you taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule to talk to me. And I'll be putting your details and all of the posts that I'm going to be doing about this just below me, especially on YouTube. But connect with Patrick, and he's got a lot of very important things to say. So thank you very much indeed. You take care.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks,
Take
Patrick.
care, Chris.
Bye bye.
Bye.